It's been a while since I've read out of Hi Fat Boy, read out of this book, The Fifth Sacred Thing, so I thought I'd read a chapter tonight. Fat Boy, will you go lay down, please? Go. Go. Hold on, I need to clean my glasses. In the moonlight, the Golden Gate Bridge cast a jagged shadow as the boat passed below. Empty sky gaped through missing sections, and no festive lights decked the cables. A warning, Madrone thought. The city was the city of her stories, her fabulous tales of abundance and freedom and magic, now brooded on the dark and ominous hills. Was it already destroyed? Steady, she told herself. You'll know soon enough. Isis had given her the tiller for the passage through the bay, and she steered them through the channels she knew so well. Around the lee of Angel Island, past Alcatraz, around the curve of the peninsula into the open bay, and south under the Bay Bridge, which gaped with twisted and jagged metal. It's like returning to a lover whose arms have been broken, she thought. The bridges were more than structures. They were symbols of the city itself, as much a feature of the landscape as Twin Peaks or Mount Tamalpais to the north. Here's what I think we should do, Madrone said. We anchor a little ways out in the bay. Isis and I'll take the dinghy into the shore, scout for a bit, find out what's happening. The rest of you will wait for us on board. Uh-oh, the dog's peeing. I can hear him. Should go pee-pee in the hall on that cart rug again. That way we have to go outside to do that. In the house, please. All right, sorry about that. Sierra, do you have to pee? It's wet outside. Okay. Hold on, fat boy. Here's what I think we should do, Madrone said. We anchor a little ways out in the bay. Isis and I will take the dinghy into the shore, scout a bit, find out what's happening. The rest of you will wait for us on board. The south waterfront had always been one of Madrone's favorite places, with its docks built over half a mile of reclaimed wetlands. Usually, the docks were thriving with activity day or night. Boats would be putting out to fish the bay for those varieties of sea creatures that did not concentrate toxins in their bodies. Crews would be working on the gigantic filter banks that extracted heavy metals and neutralized other chemicals, cleaning the incoming waters as they rose with the tide to fill the marshlands. The markets were always lively, full of shrimp and crab and oysters cultivated in the filtered water, and little eating places noisy with conversation and the hum of the grinders turning shells to I can't ever say this word, diome, diom, diometrous earth for the gardeners. During the day, children learned to sail small boats on practiced kayaking and windsurfing. Overhead, great flocks of gulls wheeled and turned, while graceful white egrets and great blue herons stalked the shadows. The docks always brought back the excitement of her first year at the university before the epidemics, the thrill of living away from home and then coming home. She could have crossed the bay by train or bike, but she always preferred, when possible, to sail. Arriving by water seemed like coming home from a long and mysterious voyage, another world, and now she was coming back from another world. Would anyone be left in her home to welcome her? Madrone and Isis made fast the dinghy to a piling, climbed out onto the docks, and moved swiftly along them until they reached the solid land. Cautiously, they headed out on the deserted walkways that wound their way west into the city. They were expert night stalkers, wary as cats, fading back into the shadows at any unanticipated noise. I am walking through my own city as if it were it were the abode of the enemy, Madrone thought. And so it is. The big collective houses and small private cottages still stood surrounded by fruit trees and gardens held in a web of irrigation channels, but no water flowed in the stream beds. Madrone could see the gardens were ragged, weeds growing unchecked, flowers and vines withered and dry. They heard a far-off rumble, like thunder or an explosion. They walked on. With each step closer to her home, Madrone felt more and more afraid of what she would find. Suddenly, water came pouring down through the dry steam, foaming at the mouth. Like figures in a silent dance, people emerged from the houses and, without speaking, placed hoses in the flow, filled buckets and glass jars. Madrone hesitated for a moment. "Water thieves?" Isis remarked. "You got them here too?" "Never before," Madrone replied. "Water was always been free here." She was exhausted, near tears. Isis laid a hand on her shoulder. "Steady, she said. "Maybe it will be again." They walked on. Black Dragon House still stood in the front garden, as withered and shaggy as the others, but otherwise looking the same. The windows were dark and the front door did not open to Madrone's careful nudge. "It's locked." "What you want to do? Knock on it and let them know you're here, or sneak in somehow?" "It's not an easy house for that," Madrone said. The bottom story was the locked garage, and the door to the passageway beside it was locked too. The front windows above were inaccessible. "Maybe around the back. Come on." It was a street of old Victorian townhouses and stood jammed up against one another, enclosing their common back gardens from four sides. Madrone led Isis around the block where a narrow driveway separated two of the buildings, leading to a garage in the back. It was blocked by a high fence, but this lifted Madrone to the top and then leaped up itself, catching the edge of the fence and pulling herself up and over. The back gardens, Madrone was glad to see, were in marginally better condition than the front. There were lettuces still moist and green, and a few dark globes hung from the tomato plants. They made their way to the back of Black Dragon House. A low light burned in the back room. The curtains were drawn. Ouch, my wrist hurts. Madrone tried the handle on the back door. It was locked too. The potted aloe vera plant still stood on the back steps, and yes, the key was still underneath it. She slipped the key into the lock and turned it cautiously. Silently, she took a step into the house. "Who's there?" a voice demanded. A bright light was shining in her eyes. Isis was gone out the door, but Madrone thought the voice sounded familiar. "Sam, is that you? What are you doing here?" "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "I live here, Sam. Don't you recognize me? It's Madrone." Madrone? I've come home." Madrone! He dropped the light and grabbed her in a fierce hug that nevertheless seemed frail, as if he were clinging to her strength. I can't think of anyone on earth I'd rather have appear out of the night just now. Where's Maya? Is she okay? And Bird, and Nita, and Sage, and Holy Bear? Maya's up in the ritual room, and Nita's catching some sleep upstairs. Sage and Holy Bear are upriver. Should be getting back tomorrow or next day. We've got a house full of 6 soldiers here, and none of us know quite what to do with them. Deserters. They're starting to come over to us. They really are, but we can't seem to keep them healthy. Bird? Sit down, Madrone. Wait, let me call Isis back, she said, feeling sick inside because she was sure he was going to tell her he was dead. She leaned out the door and whistled, and Isis stepped into the small back porch where Sam had apparently been sleeping on the cot and they kept for overflow guests. Isis? Sam. Pleased to meet you, Sam said, extending his head, looking at her curiously. Isis regarded him with caution, ignoring her proffered handshake. Same to you, she said. Isis regarded him. I already said that. He closed the back door and shepherded them through the next room, which was lined with bodies, sleeping or moaning or turning. They went into the hallway and through into the front room, Maya's old office. Isis stared at the bookshelves, running her fingers along the bindings. Madrone settled down on the couch. Okay, Sam, tell me the bad news, Madrone said. He's alive, he said. I don't know how to tell you this. He was arrested when they first marched in, along with Marie and Rosa. You remember her? Little Rosa? Right, the pretty one. Damn in hell. Bird was locked away for a long while, and when he came out... What, Sam? Just tell me. He was wearing their uniform and working for them. I don't believe it. Neither do a lot of people. Some say he must be working on some plan of his own. Others, well, tempers are short and suspicions running high. They've been accusations, but we can go into that later. What kind of accusations? Bird was a strong voice in council for nonviolent resistance. Some have speculated that he was in the pay of the enemy all along, that his job was to persuade us not to take up arms. Oh, Bird, poor Bird, Madrone thought. No wonder I cannot teach you. What do you think, Sam? Madrone asked. I've seen him and talked to him. He comes to the plaza most mornings to hand out water ration cards. Nobody takes them. And? I think they did something terrible to him. No one is superhuman, Madrone. We all have a breaking point. That's the truth, Isis said. When Madrone tried to reach for Bird, all she could feel was a wall, barricading some pain she could not see. Bird, Bird, my love, secretly, I imagined you were here to greet me and love me. Where are you now? What have they done to you? And how was it for you in the Southlands? Sam asked. That's a long, long story. I learned a lot, mostly about myself. I don't know if I accomplished much, but I tried. Did you learn anything about boosters? Quite a bit. I've got a good guess as to what they are, and with the monsters, I developed a protocol for withdrawal. Our best guess is that they function like a synthetic cytokines, Sam said. You got it. We've got a few samples stashed away on the boat, and some other information you can look at. Do we still have access to the databanks? No, but the stewards don't either. The crystals went on strike. Wouldn't function for them. Smart, those rocks. But Madrone, how are you? Are you okay, I mean? Not hurt, are you? I'm fine, Sam. Exhausted at the moment, but a night of rest should fix me up. Well, I'm glad to hear it, because as soon as you're up to it, we can put you to work. Madrone glanced around the room. How safe is it here, Sam? This house, I mean. I've got 3 other women who came up on the boat with us, and one of them gave birth a few nights ago. Plus, the baby and a sick little girl. Nothing in the city is safe, love, but they could stay next door with the sisters and send your boat across the bay. We agreed in council not to keep any water transports on the side to help contain the invasion. So far, that strategy has worked pretty well. We blew up the bridges before they arrived. They concentrated their troops here on the peninsula, and we succeeded in isolating the infection. You blew up the bridges, not them? So far, there hasn't been any aerial bombardment. Frankly, I don't think they still have the functioning technology for it. Madrone sighed. It was a great relief to learn that the people of the city had blown up the bridges themselves. If we destroyed them, we can rebuild them someday. But what are you doing here, Sam? What happened to the hospital? The soldiers commandeered it, and we couldn't very well put deserters there. When this all started, well, to be truthful, Maya and I kind of shacked up together here, and I started bringing some of the sick ones home. And, well, Sam, you old dog. I love her, Madrone. Go up and see her. She's been worried sick about you. The ritual room was another makeshift hospital ward. Madrone stepped cautiously over the sleeping bodies and made her way to the far end where Maya sat, looking out the window. The moon, just past its full, hung over Twin Peaks, and in the light, Maya's hair was pure silver, her face narcissus white. I can't reach him, she said. He's like a locked door, but I can feel his pain. It's me, Madrina, Madrone, I'm home. Madrone knelt beside Maya and took her hand. They felt frail, trembling in hers as Maya turned slowly to look at her. Madrone! Her eyes filled with tears, and Madrone leaned forward to embrace her. They hugged tightly, and then Maya pulled back and stroked Madrone's face. What have they done to you? They've made an old woman of you in those Southlands. You've got a scar. The bees did that, Madrone smiled her. I'm okay. Really, I'm just weather beaten. And you? Maya's head shook so tightly it was barely more than a tremor. I can't stand this, Madrone. They're hurting him. I know they're hurting him, worse than before. And I can't do anything. I can't help him. Madrone let out a long breath. Can anybody help him? They won't try. They think he's betrayed us. Maya sounded almost like a child. She is really very old, Madrone thought. How long can she last? I wanted to go haunt the general, but Sam won't let me. She sat up then, and her voice recovered some of its usual tart humor. Do you realize how long it's been since I've let a man tell me what to do? Madrone smiled. I'm happy about you and Sam. You need someone to keep you in line. But what do you mean, haunt the general? It's part of our strategy, one of Lily's ideas. Whenever the soldiers kill somebody, the family dresses in white and follows him. Not the killer, I mean. And follows him, the killer, I mean. They tell him stories about his victims, try to make them real. Mostly they just won't go away, won't leave the soldier alone. And this is effective, Madrone asked. You'd be surprised. We've got a house full of ones who've never come over to our side. They say the dead haunt them too. Trust the dead, Madrone said. She stood up. I've got to take care of the few things, but I wanted to see you first. Oh, Madrina, I'm glad you're alive. Enjoy it while it lasts, Maya said. Sam arranged for the neighbor boy to return for the boat with Isis. The plan was to ferry the others ashore, and then for Isis to take the boat across the bay. She would find a safe place to anchor, and someone would ferry her back the next day by dinghy. How badly do you need that sleep? Sam asked Madrone. What are you asking? There's a couple of cases I'd love for you to see if you were up to it. Sure, Sam. And I've got something for you to look at, too. What's that? Printouts of some computer records I stole. Data slugs, too. If we can read them, I'm not sure, but they might have some information relevant to the epidemics. I'll take a look after I show you around. But here was one of the first. That was what, about 2 weeks ago, Sam said. He's not doing too well, as you can see. There were 6 patients in Sage's room, and Madrone knelt by the sides of them. 2 weeks. His immune system ought to be just beginning to recover. He's got the flu, though. We kept him alive, but barely. Let me look at him. She took a deep breath, let herself go into the bee mind. Would it work here, so far away from the hives? She bent her head and tasted a drop of his sweat. What's this? What are you doing? Sam asked nervously. Madrone grinned. New technique. Instant chemical analysis. Then she closed herself to distractions and settled into the familiar work of healing. She stopped when she began to feel the gray drag of exhaustion. Outside, the black night sky had taken on to azure luminosity of the approaching day. Sam had already gone back to sleep, making Maya come to bed with him. Warily, Madrone climbed the stairs to her own room and peeked in. The floor was covered with snoring bodies. She checked other rooms. Every bed in the house seemed taken. But in one bed, she recognized the dark froth of Nita's hair. Madrone kicked off her shoes, contemplated undressing, but decided it was too much trouble and climbed in beside Nita. Who's that? Nita murmured in her sleep. Madrone, I'm back. Nita rolled over and then sat up awake. Madrone? It's really me, you're not dreaming. Madrone! They hugged each other, laughing and crying. I can't believe it's really you, Nita said. I know, I can't believe I'm really here, in my own home. Whoa, what happened? My lights went out. Oh, I better turn them back on. They magically turned off. It's funny when that happens. Fat boy, what are you doing? Okay, let's see. I know, I can't believe I'm really here, in my own house, in my own home. It seems so unlikely. Tell me about it. Oh, Nita, I don't have the strength right now. It was hard, but I'd rather hear what's been happening to you. Not much. Sage and Holy and I missed out on the worst of it. We had to protect our cell lines. Otherwise, even if we win, we could be set back decades. So we took them upriver before the troops arrived. Now we've got a lab established there, and things are relatively under control. So I came back to replenish our supplies. You heard about Bird? Sam told me. They torture prisoners, I've heard. I know. They sat together, holding each other, until Madrone began to shiver. You're cold, Cuerda, Nita said. Get under the blankets. Just tried, Madrone said. So tired. I wish I could sleep for a week. I wish you could too, but I doubt you'll be allowed to. Anyway, I'll get up now and let you have the bed. Tiosa, I'm glad you're back. 4th day, no boosters, man. This is the shits. Shit's what we gotta look forward to, lest they get the trains through. You shit, man. Eat shit. They broke into loud laughter. Bird was lying on his bunk, listening to the voices around him, his eyes closed, falling through empty space. At times, he thought he was chasing someone. Cleese, who turned into Madrone, who turned into Rosa. I love you, he said, but she turned away and fled, and he was still falling. A unit ain't nothing without its commander. What do we do now Ohine's gone? Pick a new commander. Who, you, Commander Asshole? Fuck you. Bird rolled over and covered his head with his blanket. The dark was comforting. He wished he could crawl in deeper and disappear. You can't disappear, you've got responsibilities. It was Johanna's voice in his head. Although he couldn't see her face, he imagined it, disapproving. I am failing them all, he told her. I don't trust myself. Nonetheless, this is something you've got to see through from beginning to end. Then let it end now. I want it to end. Bird cried out, but he was still falling, and now he was past her. Maybe we should have followed Oheim. He's the commander. Followed him out of the army? Man, you leave the army, you die. We dying here without the boosters. They get the boosters. You wait. Don't you worry. The unit ought to stick together. We ought to stick behind the commander. Rio was an old, bearded white man, like the millennialists' god. Bird wanted to confess to him. I just stood there and let them be killed. I didn't try to stop them. I should have thrown my body in between them, saved them, or died. Oheim would have shot me. Don't bet on it. And if he had, that would have been better. Oh, stop it, Bird. Stop trying to make me into an agent of your punishment. What do you want me to do? Stop pitying yourself and start thinking. I don't pity myself. I'm just afraid, Rio. Weren't you ever afraid? I've been afraid, Rio said, and now Bird imagined a note of compassion into his voice. Fear and shame and guilt and humiliation, believe me, I've felt them all. Worse than you, because I actually had something to feel guilty about. You've simply encountered a system of force that's stronger than you are. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I am ashamed. Of course you are. That's what force does to us all. But it's a useless emotion for you right now. It's stopping you from thinking and noticing what's around you. Listen. Listen to what they're saying. They're on the verge of rebellion. You're probably on the knife edge of victory, and you talk about wanting to die. Get out of that bed and do something useful. What happened to Oheim anyway? Witches took him. What'd they do to him? Bird sat up. Hey, Bird, you tell us. What they gonna do to Oheim? They'll try to heal him, Bird said. What do you mean? They'll try and heal his mind to keep him from killing like that again. But the dead gonna haunt him? Right. But if he joins the witches, they'll try to heal him. But he'll die without the boosters. Maybe not. I know of deserters who've survived, and the witches will try to keep him alive. Why? He killed a whole family of them. Still, they try to keep him alive. We don't believe in revenge. Why not? We let the dead take their own revenge. If they heal him, then what? Then he'll live like the rest of them. If they win, free and equal, or die with the rest of them. What do you mean, free and equal? I mean, nobody telling you what to do or wear or think. I mean, your color doesn't matter, and your ancestors get respect. I mean, having enough to eat and drink and a place to live you can call your own, and work to do that you feel good about. Oheim gonna have all that? Maybe. What do you mean, color don't matter? Look at me, Bird said. I'm as dark as the rest of you, and I was on the council. I was a musician once. I went to the university. I could be anything I wanted to be. No shit, man. That's for real. That for real? No shit? Man, we're in the wrong fucking army then, 3-2 said, and raucous laughter rang through the barracks. But there was an edge to it, an undertone of thought. They moved him out of the barracks the next morning and locked him in a dark underground storage room where they let him wait for a very long time. He lay on a bare cold floor, shaking, trying to contain his fear. He had to fight to breathe, not to pant like a dog with his tongue lolling out. Slow. Take a long breath. In and out. Count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His heart was racing, and they haven't even done anything to me yet. Stop. Don't think about it. The fear is worse than the thing feared. Rio used to say that, and I wish I could believe it. Where there's fear, there's power. Maya said that. But you had it wrong, Abuelita. Where there's power, there's fear. What scared him most was Rio's suggestion that victory might be possible. The supply lines were down. Soldiers were deserting every day. Not many, but others were thinking about it. Maybe Lily's strategy was starting to work. If that were true, his resistance or compliance might still make a difference. The situation called for qualities he no longer possessed: courage, stamina, obstinacy. Diosa, he had no more left. How could he hold out against them when he knew that they could always hold out longer? It cost them nothing to inflict pain. It cost him everything to resist. And if they worked on Rosa, how long could he bear that? But Goddess help him. He would have to try again, even if he were already on the road that would lead him to abominations in the end. There was some honor left in prolonging the journey, maybe even some dangerous, seductive hope. But when they brought him to the general, it was not for questioning, but for punishment. "You've been lying to us," the general told him. "You've been holding out on us. That's not a wise thing to do, boy. You're not only our informant, you know. We have many ways of gathering information." Bird said nothing. The guards that flanked the general were not from his own unit, but from the private guard. And their white faces turned red and shiny under the hot lights. They shone in Bird's eyes. "Why didn't you tell us about the cisterns?" the general asked. "All the time you sat out in the plaza laughing at us, knowing damn well that nobody would sign on for rations as long as they had full store of water sitting in the basement. Why did we have to discover that ourselves during a search?" "You didn't ask," Bird said. Then his punishment began. So that's the end of that chapter. It's been a while since I read out of it because it's almost done, and I love a good book. I really do love a good book. It takes me into a different world for a little while, which sometimes can be nice. All right, everyone, have a good end of your weekend. See you in the morning time.